Okay, roger, detect partner location.
The men and women of the armed forces bravely risked their lives to protect ours. Thanks to medical advances on the battlefield, a record number of troops are saved and return home to begin the long journey to recovery.
The types of injuries that we're seeing are primarily head injuries, and of course, anytime you're around a massive explosion like a lot of these patients are experiencing from what they call IEDs or improvised explosive devices, it creates all kinds of other types of trauma. We have folks that are missing multiple limbs, amputations. We have people with crushed bones. We have people with incredibly bad flesh injuries. Some are blind, some are deaf. But you know, anything that a traumatic explosion can do to the human body, we're seeing.
In 2005, we found out quite by accident that the wounded troops were coming to Richmond. In my time as a former Marine officer, had I been wounded, I would have gone to a Navy hospital, probably closest to my home. Now they bring the wounded to the hospital that can best serve the needs of the wounded. So the families, in many cases, have to travel great distances to get to the hospital where the wounded soldiers are.
When they get that call in that their loved one's been injured, they just pack up everything and go.
The troops receive fantastic medical care, but the families are with them. You're not going to let your son or your daughter or your husband or your wife be in a hospital alone, no matter where it is. Whenever it's possible, you're going to be there with your loved one, with your family member. So people come, and they don't come for 2 days or 3 days. They come for extended periods of time.
It's a big hospital, has some of the best clinical treatment available, but there's virtually nothing for the families of the wounded. The families of the wounded was born out of that. We said, here's a real need, we've got to fix this. Families of the Wounded Fund got its start in early 2005. And we really determined that there was a need when one of our fellow veterans on a Saturday morning came across this young lady who was just arrived in town after driving 2.5 days from Dallas, Texas with a brand new baby. And it turned out she had $4 in her wallet, 2 little kids, ran out of gas in the parking lot. And she came into the restaurant where they were eating and was just burst into tears, and several of the guys went over to see what her problem was, and found out that she had arrived in Richmond. Her husband had just come back from being wounded in Afghanistan. They made sure she got a little cash and got her a place to stay. She said that her greatest need was to get some support for her brand new baby, because she had left Texas so fast that she had not brought an ample supply of diapers and formula with her.
And I think it started out with $100 and chocolate chip cookies, just to help people out.
The families are an essential part of the treatment and the rehabilitation. I speak from my own personal experience that having my wife and my family at my bedside for most of my treatment, which went on for over 3.5 years, was a critical factor in my recovery. If I hadn't had somebody there that I knew cared about me and could ask the hard questions of the medical staff when I wasn't able to really be aware of what was going on, I probably would not have survived. I knew how valuable the presence of the family was. And so we attempted to find some resources to help these families out. There being few, if any, then we decided to get together and form this organization.
Once people find out about what we are doing, they want to help. We will take anything. We will take 50 cents or we will take $5,000. The funds come in from a varied number of people throughout our market area, our community, in support of our good cause. And we make sure that 100% of everything that's raised goes directly to these families. We have no administrative costs that the fund absorbs at all. It's all volunteer.
If you're away from home, if you're anywhere, your life goes on, you're not working. I don't care who you are or at what level you are. If you're taking off 2, 3, 4 weeks or a week in, week out, or something like that, it's going to cost you big money.
We presently are giving $6,000 per family. And that may sound like a lot of money, but when you consider that these families are leaving employment for the most part back in the hometown where they come from, and we've had families come from every state in the union and several of the territories as well, that they're giving up employment there, so literally half the family income has disappeared, and they're paying their bills back home as well as they're paying for their lodging and food and medical care.
If you can just think about going to McGuire and presenting a $6,000 check to a family member of a wounded, severely wounded soldier, 100% of the time tears flow. It's very emotional, very appreciative, sometimes in almost disbelief.
The money the families that are wounded disperses goes directly to the primary next of kin of the soldier. The families, you know, it's sort of an afterthought. And I think we are probably one of the very few who raise money to go directly to the families. And we've saved several of them from missing mortgage payments, car payments, and that sort of thing.
What do you need? She said, I need a car. Because running back and forth in a van with a baby just doesn't work. I called one car dealer to find out where this person could rent a car cheap. He said, I've got a car she can use. I said, it could be several months. He said, that's all right. And he gave her a car to use for several months until it was time for her to leave. That's not unusual. We expect that to happen anymore. We're not surprised, we're gratified when we see these things, but we're no longer surprised. We believe that these things are miracles. They really are.
These brave Americans and their families need and deserve our help. With your support, the Families of the Wounded Fund is helping soldiers and families during a very difficult time and setting the foundation for a bright future.
A case of a West Point graduate who came back and he was missing both legs and just severely injured as far as flesh injuries on both arms and in his chest and abdomen. And he just looked like a piece of Swiss cheese, frankly. Was successfully treated with, both legs had artificial legs, and literally walked out of McGuire as he left, and was being seriously considered, to remain on active duty in an administrative capacity where he would be of great service to the fellow soldiers. And I think that he's a great example of the successful treatment and rehabilitation that they go through.
My favorite was a young Marine sergeant. And I remember going into his room, and he'd had both legs blown off below the knees. And he was lying there in his bed, and I went up and said, Sergeant, I'm sorry about your legs, but thank you for your service. And he looked up with his bright beam in the eye and said, no problem, sir, I'm getting new legs, I'm going to be 2 inches taller.
We had one mother who prayed the night before that a miracle would happen so that she could stay longer during the rehabilitation process, and that money did help her to stay.
Today you call me and tell me you're sending me $2,000 and that's a miracle. And there are a lot of miracles in what we do.